What's up, everybody? This is Mike Goldstein. Stickers of the C.A.N report, condition, actions, and needs. Nozzle top, y'all. We're bringing it back to Texas with my good friend here, Eric Wentz, a common spelling. He is a solid dude. I met him in Texas at the Dadgum conference. I think it's been almost was it a year or 2 years ago? No, it was a year ago. About a year and a half ago. He is a solid brother who loves the fire service. This guy's all in a hard charger. He's a jacked beast, and he's a cool man. So welcome, my friend Eric Wentz. I am so happy to have you on here. I think it's great that we can go back to Texas. You guys you got it going on over there, and thank you so much for this. Is your first podcast ever doing this, right?
It is.
Well, thank you so much for being the first for me and for you. I can't express enough love to have you here, and I'm pumped to talk about fire service and all things that we love about it.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate the opportunity. Always good to talk to you, brother.
So Eric Wentz, he is a 5.5 year combined volunteer / full-time experience in the fire service. He's currently a firefighter for Granite Shoals Fire Department, Medal of Valor recipient, affiliated with the Dadgum crew, helps instruct with MV Fire Rescue, supported by his wife of 11 years, Jessica, and his 2 daughters, Kinley and Hayden. He's a lover of all things fire service, and that's definitely true, man. You are a lover of all things fire service. You are in it to win it. You're all in. So let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, man. So let's talk about first. We'll talk about the Dadgum, and then we'll get into some of the meat potatoes of other things. How did you get into the Dadgum? How did you become affiliated with them?
In my first year at Granite Shoals, I had a lieutenant there that was kind of taking over the training at our department, and he connected with Matt Valdez, Kevin Pfluger, and some of those guys down at a conference in Corpus Christi. And he was talking with Matt, and Matt was, talking to him about the classes that he had and, the things that he was doing and what he had going on. And my lieutenant, Evan, came back to the station, talked to Chief, and he was like, "Hey, Chief, I met these guys. They're doing some awesome stuff, have some good training opportunities. What do you think?" Chief bought into it right away. It was just maybe 5-6 months later, we had Matt and his crew come down and do a forcible entry class. And then Kev and the guys came down and did their engine ops class. And then just a couple months later, we had the no quit RIT. And it was really during the no quit RIT class when I think I really connected with those guys and kind of really bought into, what they were about. I remember in the engine ops class, that's when I first met Kevin, but I just remember watching him and hearing him in, a group of probably 40 of us. And you would have thought that he had known us all for 10 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's just the ultimate hype man and was just, loving to be there. And he just, can you guys believe we get to do this shit for a job? And, just fired up, and it was awesome. And then getting to see him again at the No Quit RIT, I met Tom Hollick and, really, really hit it off with him and those guys. And Lance was there. And man, I made it a point to go up to him afterwards and just tell him how much their passion meant to me and how much they poured into us. I got their phone numbers. They're the kind of guys that they'll give their phone number to anybody and like, "Hey, if you ever need anything, you let me know."
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that took advantage of that and just kept in contact with them. I almost talk to them every week, call them for advice. They're just a good group of people. So it just really developed from there, man. And kept seeing them at conferences. Went to the Dadgum conference last year. That was my first time there. And you can attest to this, man. It's just something special.
It certainly is.
I tell everybody that will listen to me, like that is a must do. I was able to bring my wife and my daughters up there, and it was just so thoughtfully put together to incorporate the families, because they sacrifice so much more than we do,
Yeah.
So to be able to have them come and experience why I love going to those things and being around those people. They were able to, make connections with people and kind of just get that feeling of like we're not alone,
Yeah.
because that was during my first year as a full-time firefighter. When I
Oh,
went
okay.
to that conference, my wife and daughters were still getting used to this life of having a husband, having a dad that's going to be gone, every 4 days for 48 hours. We work a 48.96. So, it was a big change. And for them to be able to go and my daughters meet other kids whose dads do the same thing, and my wife meet other, women whose husbands do that. It was just,
Sure.
for us as a family, was just a really good place for everything to kind of come together and realize that the fire service is more than just our department. It's a bigger thing, and just the willingness of other firefighters, other fire wives and fire kids to help each other out is absolutely out there.
It
And
takes a lot, man. To put on those conferences is it's not easy.
yeah,
Just the money alone that you need, the sponsors that you need, and then like you said, like put in a lot of thought, like the personal side of things of letting the families come in and see what's going on, and putting on those special events for the wives or significant others. I love the fact that they had like workshops for them, and they had and then they had an after for the spouses and for the firefighters to do stuff together. The wine and paint night, that was
yeah,
really cool. And
yeah,
running the Explorer Academy, I can see how I actually took a lot from them and brought it back when I did the Explorer Academy, because they have it going on. They were very schedule smart. They had their stations lined up, their times. I loved just the behind the scenes of it, of what it took to get everyone rotating through their stations, because there's so many of us. You don't want guys just standing around and getting cold. I mean, we're athletes, and we got to keep
right,
warm and get our bodies ready to go to work. And standing around, you start getting cold, and you need to make sure you're limber up. So the fact that they had the stations rotating, and everyone was on point with their numbers and communicating and making sure that the clock is ticking, and they know that, hey, you got 15 minutes left at the station, you got to rotate. And that takes a lot of coordination, a lot of communication. And it was a well-oiled machine. From what I saw, it was top notch.
for sure. And even down to the guys that they brought in to teach. I don't know how they did it, but like you're saying, they did keep things on such a timely manner, but without sacrificing that intimacy, and being able to, as a participant, feel like I had time still to ask my questions, to understand things. They
Yeah.
made sure, like, hey, if you're hung up on something, stick around afterwards. I won't go home yet. I'll sit here and do reps with you until we're blue in the face. Like, yeah, it's something special.
It was, yeah, it really is. Like, you're 100% accurate. It is something special. It's hard to put into words, right? Like, just the bonds that we make and the brotherhood that we make. And it's not just dadgum specific either. That, I mean, a lot of the other conferences we go to, it's the same thing. I mean, you've been to a crap load in your area, and same thing. You're making friends and connections at every event, every training conference. Arkansas was another thing where I made a bunch of new friends, and it was
Yeah.
cool to connect with these people, and living thousands of miles away, and I still get to talk to them and see how they're doing.
Yep.
So I wish I lived in Texas, because you guys are just really just hard chargers. Your guys training constantly, and the conferences are more abundant in your area than it is up here. We really don't have a lot. We have our fools, but other than that, we don't have many in our general area, in the New Hampshire area, which I'm really hoping we can change. And that's, again, one of my big things that I started this podcast, is to bring light to New Hampshire, what we have to offer, but also that maybe we can get together as New Hampshire and put on these conferences that I see so many of in Florida and Georgia and Texas and Arkansas, and it's just in Chicago as well. It's just amazing what they have, and I would love to see New Hampshire start putting on, because we need it. And I think we have some specialized areas of, like, you guys don't have basements, we have basements. It's cool to be
Right.
able to do some trainings on basement fires, and some other situations that we have in major roof ops. And I think we can really do really well in New Hampshire to have conferences like Dadgum has. And I would love to bring those instructors that we see down there up here and work together, south meets north, and
Sure.
one big awesome conference, and see what we can come up with and all the connections and friendships we make over that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We're
I love it.
spoiled for sure, man. And yeah, it's just it's a great thing to have, and it's 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 been a huge part of my development. I've been extremely blessed, that my chief really has allowed me in my first 2 years as a full-time firefighter. Like, he lets me go and do these things, and obviously he encourages me to come back and put something together and share
Yep.
it with the group.
You got to
But
share it.
yeah, and I mean, yeah, and that's a whole nother thing. Like, that's great in itself, and that's so fun to share that stuff and spread that word, man. It's special.
So you've had an interesting story coming into the fire service. You were talking about how you almost didn't make it through the fire academy, that you had a minor surgery go wrong, and you had a serious situation that your wife actually came in clutch for you, to actually for you to live. You had a near death experience. Do you care to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an event that has really changed my life. I mean, in many ways, and changed my family's life. So I was about halfway through fire academy, and just to kind of give you a little bit of background, the fire academy that I attended it was called Texas Fire Academy, TFA. And when I made the decision to go full time, I was working a full time job building custom homes here in West Austin. And, I got the blessing from my wife to go ahead and go back and do it. But, I needed to keep making money. So I had to find something that was going to allow me to keep my full time job and also pursue this fire career. So I got online, found this academy that was about an hour and a half away from me. It's 40 hours during the week on the computer, and then Friday through Sunday, all day in person. And little did I know, I mean, it was an intense paramilitary, no BS academy. I mean, they called day one Hell Day, and it was nothing short of that. I mean, it was good. And in hindsight, I'm glad that I did it that way, because it kind of set that bar of, the seriousness of this job and the oaths that we take. And the instructors that they had there showed me kind of that there were levels to it, right? Like, I had guys like Jason Jeffrey, Craig Lalonde, Brad Elkins, just some monsters down here that were teaching us as cadets, like, what it means to be a fireman. And it was a fantastic experience. But anyway, so about halfway through, I have a couple herniated discs in my lower back, and every once in a while I would go down to Houston and get some stem cell injections, and it was typically a pretty quick procedure. Um, due to the location of the injections, I had to be put under anesthesia for the process. Typically about a 45-minute deal. I had done it probably 4 or 5 times previous to this. And for whatever reason on this particular trip, I would usually go up there, get the procedure, get a hotel room, sleep off the anesthesia, and then drive home. I mean, it was just not a big deal. And for whatever reason, this particular time, it was like the night before, Jessica tells me, like, hey, why don't I come with you? We can save the money on the hotel room. I'll find somebody to pick up the girls from school, and I'll drive you down there. I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Go in. I was supposed to be the first appointment of the day. Things got behind that morning. Um, Long story short, I go in, get the process, get brought out to my wife's car. We get about 10, 15 minutes down the road, and my wife looks over and I'm not breathing.
Shit.
So she calls 911, pulls over on the side of the road. We are in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And, dispatch tells her that she's got an ambulance en route and starts talking her through CPR and how to do that.
Now, I imagine that's got to be a hell of a wait because you say you're in the middle of nowhere, and I know like there's areas of Texas where you are in the middle of nowhere, and those ambulances or first responders, they're going to be at least 20 minutes plus out.
Right. And that's another little piece of this story that, looking back on is just is nothing but a God thing, man. The paramedics told my wife that when they got the call, they just so happened to be driving back from the hospital to their station, which was a little satellite station out in the county. And they just so happened to be like 8 minutes out.
Wow.
Whereas if they would have been at the station, we would have been looking at 20, 25 minutes.
Wow, man. That's
yeah, it was crazy. So dispatcher starts talking just through CPR. As you know, I mean, I'm not the smallest guy. I'm quite a bit bigger than my wife, and she couldn't physically pull me out of the seat of my truck.
Sure.
So she just made the decision to just start breathing for me.
So was she doing air compressions or just mouth to mouth?
Just breaths.
Wow.
And she continued that for 8 minutes. EMS showed up. They ripped me out of the truck, start working me, and get me in the back. And had called for a helicopter, and man, they were able to get me back. And I remember really vaguely waking up in the back of the ambulance, and I kind of started like freaking out because I thought we had been in a car wreck.
Yeah.
And so I started asking for Jess, and they told me she was okay. They kind of explained to me what was happening. I was pretty out of it, obviously. But I do remember before we got on the road, like my first thought was, "Where's my wife? Is she okay?"
Sure.
My second thought was, "Holy shit, I'm gonna have to go through fire academy again." And like, because I was,
man, those are priorities right there.
Well, I mean, I was so close, man. Like I was so close, I could taste it.
Oh, you were like that close to finishing, so you've been doing it for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, I was at least halfway through,
Oh boy.
maybe closer than that. So they bring me back to the hospital. I spend a lot of time in the hospital, get released. This is all happening on a Tuesday. Friday was the start of search and rescue weekend at Fire Academy. So I made the decision to not tell anybody what happened, and just went back and sucked it up, and went through it. And I think
Dude,
it was
that's
like
crazy.
maybe 3 weeks later, something was coming up, and like I wasn't feeling quite right, and I had the feeling that I needed to let somebody know, what had happened. I guess just to kind of keep an eye on me, I guess.
Yeah.
So that I didn't push myself too hard, just so I had somebody looking out. And I chose to tell the lead instructor, Brad Elkins, and I tell him the story, and he was like, "You're kidding me, right?" And I was like, "No, sir. I wish I was, but I'm not." And he said, "Why didn't you tell me?" And I said, "Well, to be honest, sir, like I didn't want to be released. I want to finish this academy, and I want to do this job." So, I'm very lucky that he agreed to let me stay. He obviously told me he was going to let the other instructors know, have them kind of keep an eye on me.
Yeah.
It ended up not not holding me back. I luckily didn't have any broken ribs. I had a couple ribs that dislocated, and every once in a while, still, like, I'll have, they'll kind of like pop out, but I can get them back in pretty easily. It
Jeez.
happened at the no quit Rick class during the Denver drill. Got thrown up on the windowsill and felt them pop
Oof.
out, and I was like, oh, there she is.
Man, man, man.
But yeah, man, that was a pretty pivotal point in my life. Being blessed with that second chance, and really realizing how quickly things can change, and how much of a blessing every day is, and how freaking awesome my wife is. The fact that, I mean, she graduated college with an elementary education degree. She had no medical background. I mean, she had done some CPR classes to get certified, but never in the world thought that she would actually do it. So the fact that she was able to stay focused, do what needed to be done, and and then have her emotions afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, it was unreal. I still can't believe it to this day. That
That's
that
an incredible story, bro. That is, I mean, not only did you have to be revived, you had your wife do the best that she can do, which obviously she did great at. But the fact that you went back to the academy like days later to complete it, I mean, anybody else would have just been like, "Hey, I bow out. I got to come back in about maybe 6 months for this." I mean, the fact is, obviously, it wasn't because you had, you don't have an underlying cardiac issue. It had to do something else was going on with the procedure. But dude, that's some cowboy shit right there. I mean, I haven't heard anybody like having to have CPR performed on them and then go back and do the one of the hardest evolutions you have to do literally days after getting your ribs cracked from someone doing CPR on you. That's amazing.
yeah. I mean, I just knew that this is what I was supposed to do, and I mean, I just didn't want to stop until I got it. And it worked out, man. Like, thank God. I gained a lot of awesome perspective from it. And yeah, I mean, I hate that it happened. I hate that it happened for my wife.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank God your kids weren't in the car, right?
yeah,
That's another
yeah,
blessing too. That would have been pretty traumatic for them as well.
yeah,
Now, you were so at that time you already had your EMT and your paramedic, or you had your paramedic and got it in high school.
yeah. So coming out of high school, my goal was to become a firefighter. Uh, Moved up to College Station, got my EMT basic, did my paramedic academy there at Teeks in College Station, and my wife and I got married really young. Um, and I kind of realized in between paramedic academy and starting fire academy that I'm getting married. We had planned on having kids pretty quickly, and I needed to start making money. And I made the decision back then to deviate and start putting some money in the bank. I wasn't the most financially responsible person when I was 17, 18, 19 years
Sure.
old. So I didn't have a whole lot of money to my name, but I made the decision back then to, pull away from what I thought I wanted to do, to start making some money and building a career that could provide for my family. And man, that turned into uh, 10 years, of working in construction, worked for an engineering firm, and then started building custom homes. And, looking back on it, sure, had I just gone into fire academy and got started, I would be a 15-year firefighter right now.
Sure.
But all of this experience that I was able to gain along the way in construction, in managing people, all of those little things that I acquired throughout those jobs, I see coming out as beneficial now in the fire service. So,
Yeah, your
I
knowledge in building construction, I'm sure, fucking helps amazingly in the job. You know, you have
100%.
an intimate knowledge of all of that. I mean, people have to go to school to get building construction knowledge, and having that on the job experience of building homes and knowing the ins and outs of the materials and the weak points and the strong
Yeah.
points, and that definitely carries a lot of weight into the job we do now.
Yeah. Um, so throughout the, those 10 years, I decided to, join a volunteer fire department. I figured like, hey, I can kind of scratch that itch of, my childhood dream of being a firefighter,
Sure.
but still, you know, make money and, have a career, and I can have both things, and that'll be great. Um, and it was great. I loved my time as a volunteer. I learned a ton as a volunteer. Worked at 3 different departments as a volunteer, just kind of as my wife and I moved around, um, and found myself at a volunteer firehouse about an hour west of Austin in Spicewood. And it was at Spicewood where I got dispatched onto a pretty critical call. And that call and the results of that call are what, kind of made me realize, man, like that's what I want to do. That's what I feel like I need to do is be a firefighter.
What was the call?
So it was in 2022, February 22nd. So 2/22/22. Me and 2 other guys at the VFD, 2 of my best friends at the time. We were all out in Spicewood working out, and we had training that night. So we all decided we'd get a workout in, then go to training. And I mean, as soon as we cleaned up the gym, set the equipment up, after an hour and a half workout, we get toned out to a collision. And uh, my buddy's house that we were at, he lived about 2 minutes from the station. So it was, I mean, perfect placement. And, the fact that we were all there right next to the station for this call
Hmm.
was like it had never happened before. Out where I live in this area, everything's pretty spread out. We're kind of like out in the country, I guess. So the fact that we were all that close was a pretty rare occurrence. So we all hop in our cars, run to the station. All we had on the call notes was a vehicle drove through a fence off the road, and uh, our captain grabbed the engine with one other guy who happened to be at the station. And then my buddy Jonathan and I hopped in a brush truck and headed that way. Engine pulls over on the side of the road where he could see the vehicle went through the fence. And our captain hopped out and started walking out into this field where there were 2 people standing on the side of a big stock tank, which is, like a private lake, like on a ranch.
Okay.
And Jonathan and I in the brush truck, he's driving, I'm riding seat. We pull up a little bit to turn into the gate, and we were going to make our way around onto the property. As we go through the gate, captain comes on the radio, says that we've got 1 vehicle, 1 patient in the water, and firefighter entering the water. I knew that the firefighter that he referred to going in the water was him, because I knew him and I knew he was that kind of guy, that
Sure.
he was going to go. He wasn't going to send someone else. So I tell Jonathan, I was like, hey, I'm hopping out. I'm going. Meet us down there. And we were in full bunker gear because we expected, car wreck,
Sure.
extrication. So I'm bunked out. I hop out, hop a barbed wire fence and start running down to this tank. And I'm just like stripping off my gear all across this field as I'm running down there. I get to the edge of the tank, and Cap is out in the middle of the tank, and he's hollering at me that the window is locked, bring something to break the window. And due to a lack of training, lack of preparedness, I got tunnel vision, did not think about the stuff I had on me, and I start looking on the shore like, what can I break this window with?
Sure.
And the only thing there was an empty bottle of wasp spray. Don't know why I was there, but I was like, okay, cool, I'm bringing that. I get out of my gear. I remember I was in gray khaki pants and a 511 polo. It's February, freezing cold. And so I hop in, start swimming out. And luckily, the tank where the truck was at was about 11 foot deep. So you could kind of stand on your tiptoes on the roof of the truck. And, the water level's about up at your nose.
Now, was this person completely submerged?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Patient was in the vehicle. All windows were rolled up.
Unconscious?
We didn't know.
Yeah. Okay.
We didn't know. So I get out there. I go down, try to start breaking the window with this empty can of wasp spray. Obviously doesn't work. Jonathan
Now, did
finally
you
gets...
have shit in your pocket?
Yeah, I did. Absolutely. I had a window punch. I had a window punch in the pocket of my bunker pants.
Of course. Okay.
So Jonathan gets down with the brush truck, and I start hollering at him to bring us a Halligan. Of course, I picked like one of the heaviest things on the truck to have my friend try to swim out with. He starts swimming out, and because, we had, again, just got done with a workout, it's freezing cold. He gets exhausted about halfway, starts going down. So I leave the truck to go help him over. He drops the Halligan in the process. So we're all three out there at this truck, and one of the constables on the shore pulls out her collapsible baton, makes just a picture perfect toss. Cap catches it, and he was like, all right, I'm going down. He goes down a couple of times, and he comes back up, and I see him like inhale a bunch of water. He's super red and exhausted. I mean, he had been in the water for probably 9 minutes at this point, treading water. So I took the baton from him, and so that he could, kind of catch his breath. I go down, start beating on this window, finally get through, clear out the glass. I come up and I'm like, hey, I got it. We're good to go. He goes down. Shortly later, comes back up. He's like, it's the wrong window. You need to break the front window. So we go back down, bust the front window, and he goes in, gets the guy. We pull him up, swim him to shore, get out, start CPR, do that whole thing. And we get him in the back of the ambulance, and we're working him. And man, as soon as the skids of the helicopter hit the ground, we got a pulse back. Like, wow. As soon as it hit the ground, and put him on the helicopter, sent him on his way. Luckily, about 3 or 4 months later, he got released from the hospital. Just about the time the three of us got over, we all got aspiration pneumonia from the water that we inhaled. And it was, it's basically a cattle pond. It's a place for cows to come down, drink water, use the restroom in it. It was gross. It was really gross.
Sounds pretty nasty.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. So yeah, we were all about getting over the crap that we got about the same time that this dude gets out of the hospital, which was kind of cool. But yeah, man, after kind of taking a little bit of time to, process that call, talk about that call, I just realized, like, man, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And it was then that I realized there's a difference between, you know, or it was then when I realized the importance of being prepared and training for that what if call,
Mm-hmm.
right? Out here where we're at, um, it's not just constantly popping off, just going on fires all the time, crazy wrecks. I mean, we run our fair share of good jobs, but um, they're typically pretty spread out just due to the population. Um,
Sure.
but after that day, I realized the importance of training for that, regardless of how frequently they happen or not. They can happen, and it highlighted to me the dangerousness of the "oh, that will never happen here" mindset, because it will happen. It's just a matter of time.
Is that where you
Um,
got your the recipient of the Medal of Valor from that call?
yes, yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. The three of us were awarded that then.
That's awesome. So, yeah, that's a good topic. The mindset that it'll never happen. Yeah, I think you think you're spot on with that. Especially the low frequency, high risk calls. Those are the ones we definitely don't overtrain a lot on until it
Yeah,
finally happens, and that's when, like you said, you have that oh shit moment of, man, I got to be better at this one. I hadn't trained for this, and now I want to be better for the next time if it ever happens.
yeah, 100%. And you know, we it's not like we didn't train at all, but we definitely didn't train enough. The fact that I just completely forgot that I had a tool in my pocket
Hmm.
designed for exactly what we were put up against.
Yeah,
I never want to have that feeling again.
yeah.
Uh, it was not a good feeling. Uh,
I do a lot as with those. I had the same things happen to me, man. There's always the we should always be playing back in our mind if we actually do care about the job and we care about the experience, and we should always be replaying our calls in our head of what we did good or what we did bad. If you don't care about the job, if you don't care about your performance, then you're obviously never going to play it back in your head. But I think the ones who are really dialed in, the ones who really give a shit about the job, they're always playing those calls in their head. Whether they're thinking about what they could have done better, what their crew could have done better, or maybe something they missed. The tunnel vision, like you said. I'm always writing down. I have a journal that I write for the calls that I go on to, and write what the experience was. If there's nothing bad to report, I'll still put it in my book and just think about what I saw, what was different, building construction or different hazards that I don't see. But yeah, I think that playing in our head and talking about that with our crew after the call's done, and not placing blame on anyone, but just talking about how we could be better and more prepared. That makes us dialed in firefighters. It makes us passionate about our job, and making sure that history doesn't repeat itself, and you know what to look for next time.
right, right. And I don't know if you've listened to Rob Ramirez's most recent podcast with Jeremy on National Fire Radio, but um, he brings up this mentality of a backup quarterback mentality, and yeah, you may be the backup quarterback, and you're not guaranteed to play that game, but you damn well better know the playbook, and you better know the team that you're against, and the way they operate and what they do and what they're known for, because at any moment something could happen to that starting quarterback, and it's your time to shine,
Yep.
and you've got to be ready to go. And I loved that comparison. I mean, it's spot on, man. Like it's impossible for us in the fire service to really prepare for everything, because we don't know what that tour is going to bring. We don't know what little challenges are going to or present themselves that are different from every other fire we've been on or every other car wreck we've been on. But training on the basics, and knowing your gear and knowing how your crew works and knowing your district, like those are the controllables. Those are the things that we can practice to give ourselves that little bit more of an advantage on these calls where we do know for sure that we don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Yep.
So all we can do is what we can do. And do it every time we're on shift.
Yeah, absolutely. Even those table talks, man, right?
Yep.
Sometimes not even the hands-on stuff, but I think it's important that we talk about the what ifs, of those type of calls that we go on, and what kind of tools we can use if you don't have that on you, or what else could we do to get this guy out easier, whatever the call may be. But I think the pre-planning of just talking around the table about different tactics and strategies is so super beneficial. And again, like you talked about with Robert Mayer, talking about the backup quarterback, we do need to have that mindset that we have our game plan, and we're talking about our game plan, and that we have our X's and O's, and that we are looking at the field and knowing where we need to have our people be, and if something else changes, how are we going to call an audible and be prepared for that. I think the doing the football scenarios is just like for us doing it in the field. We have to be
Yep.
prepared, just like football games. Everybody on that seat, everyone on that bench has to be prepared and ready to go to work, because you never know what's going to happen. It's so
100%.
key. I love it. So let's talk about some other stuff too. Like, see, you're really passionate about the kind of like the generational aspect of things as well. The old guys phasing out, the importance of their knowledge and experience. I think that's super important. Honestly, it goes with the game plan. It goes with the backup quarterback. When you lose those guys in those positions, what are your thoughts on that?
Man, I mean, I know we've kind of talked about conferences already, so I don't want to get hung up on that, but
Sure.
that's kind of where my eyes were really opened to the importance of conversations with senior guys, because while the fire service is changing and new tools are coming out, new tactics are coming out, at the end of the day, a lot of the basics are still the same, and they they have these little nuggets that if you don't engage with them, if you don't pick their brain and show them that you're interested in what they have to say, you're going to miss out on a world of knowledge that can absolutely help you, regardless of the you know the fires are different than they were back then, or whatever. Those guys got to where they are for a reason, and
Absolutely.
just like you said, us playing these calls back in our heads is valuable. I mean, sit down with an older guy and ask him about some calls that he's been on, because those guys still remember those calls. They
Yeah.
remember what went wrong, they remember what went bad, and every little bit of advantage that we can give ourselves, again, is priceless. And if if you come in and you think that you've got it all figured out, and you think that you can build yourself on Instagram posts and YouTube videos, like, while those can be important and you can learn some great stuff from that, going straight to the source and talking to these guys who have been around and who have seen the way different departments do things, the way different officers do things, it's so important to be able to get that information and utilize that before they leave, before they retire, because when they do, that info's gone.
Yeah, man.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, it's important too. I mean, they've seen the fire service change in front of their eyes.
yeah,
You know, we're we've I've been lucky enough where I've got to see some changes happen in my time, but especially the young ones coming in, they just know what's in front of their face. And the guys who now have been on for 25, 30 years, they literally have seen the face of the fire service change greatly. And
yeah,
like you said, that experience is so beneficial. They can tell you how the old fires were, and they can tell you how the new fires are. It's definitely things that I think we take for granted, for especially for the younger generation coming in, of not taking advantage of. You have that teacher right in front of you, the senior man or the senior captain or lieutenant that's been doing it for 20 years, and they can really give you some good knowledge without having to go to your phone. You just, like you said, you just got to sit at that table and ask them questions, or sit on that couch and just ask them a question. They're going to give you, they love to be tapped for information. You
yep.
just have to ask. And like you said, I think we don't know what we have until it's gone. And when those guys leave, that's when everyone talks about, man, this guy did this and this guy did that. Man, I wish we still had him here because he had already seen this, he already done that, and he knew where every hydrant was. He knew he could get you water from anything.
Yep.
Or he was, this medic, he was dialed in, and he could get someone back with this, or he was great at running, putting a line in the arm, just whatever the situation may be.
Yep.
But once they're gone, that's when we start talking about them. And I think we realize how much we miss them, and need them around to talk about that. And we really need to tap that resource before they leave.
Sure. And that's kind of a fine line that I'm kind of walking right now. At our department, we just hired on 4 new firefighters, and
Nice.
they're all like straight out of the academy. First fire job, their first experience in the fire service is with us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to remind myself as I'm training these firefighters and working with these firefighters, if they ask me something and I don't know, I'm reaching out to those guys who have been in it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I had somebody ask me a question on this. I think this is the answer, but do you have anything else? Or am I tracking on this right? Because it's our responsibility as, kind of that in between firefighter to make sure that we're bringing these new firefighters up correctly. I mean, it's an incredibly important role, to be working with these new firefighters and training these new firefighters. And I mean, I love it, man. It's so much fun. But it's just that fine line there of not feeling like I'm the guy they're coming to ask questions. That means I know all the answers.
Yeah.
I don't. So that's kind of been a cool process for me. Is going through that, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's great,
That's
man. I
great, man.
love
I
that.
love that.
So
So
now,
now,
obviously,
obviously, the slasher.
You work
You
out a
work
little
out a
bit.
little bit.
So,
So,
do
do
you, as
you,
a
as a
crew or your
crew or your
department,
department,
do you
do you
guys
guys
always work
always
out
work
on
out on
shift? Like,
shift?
is
Like,
it
is it
important
important
uh,
uh,
for the
for the
department as a
department as a
whole,
whole,
or are you
or
the
are you the
driving
driving
force
force
of the
of the
importance of
importance of
fitness?
fitness? Our department actually is pretty good about keeping fitness highlighted. On my crew, we absolutely work out every day. I try to get everybody in gear one of the days, and then we'll do like a weight training circuit the next day. And I kind of told everybody, like, working out is not training, and training is not working out. They're two separate things, right? So we make sure that every shift we're going out, we're hitting the gym, we're getting in gear, and we're also training. Because the way I look at it is, fitness in the fire service is, it's bottom line, it is part of the job description. Like, we have got to be able to perform physically at a moment's notice to the expectations of the caller and our citizens. If they call us and we show up and their emergency is in need of 30 minutes or 20 minutes, 10 minutes of good hard work, and we are not ready for that, we are not doing our job. And I just, I mean, it's like it's kind of an extreme comparison, but I mean, it's like a sniper not being willing to learn the fundamentals of shooting, or not wanting to practice with their weapon. Like, it's part of the job, and it's not a personal thing. It's just it's a professional thing. Like, part of our job description is being in shape and being able to carry our own weight and the weight of the people on our crews. And to set a standard anything lower than that is just doing the people that we serve a disservice. And, if I'm not keeping myself in shape enough to help one of my crew members if they get jammed up, I'm disrespecting their family. You know what I mean? Their family, when they walk out of the door, whether consciously or not, they are relying on me to be able to help their husband, their wife, if they get into trouble.
Well, let me ask you this: with that mindset, and man, you're preaching it. My question to you is that do you have anybody that gives you pushback? Does anybody, when you want to do these workouts, does anybody know I'm going to go sit on the couch or I'm going to do something else? I really don't want to do that. And if you do, how do you deal with that? Like, do you shame them? Do you not talk to them, or do you respect their wishes and let them do their own thing?
I've gotten pushback. Not as much on just working out in general, more frequently the intensity of the workouts. But if I've got somebody who just doesn't want to work out, typically the excuse is, well, I don't want to get tired in case we get a call.
So I was going to ask you about that. No one's ever said that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a pretty classic answer, because it's easy, and because it's easy to fight from that side, right? But if you're doing what you need to do outside of the station, and you're not only working out when you're on shift, you should be able to work out and still perform your job. And if you can't, you need to get to that point, or else you'll never really gain ground. You'll always be playing catch up. And when I have those people that don't want to go work out, or they don't want to push themselves, I kind of typically take the approach of, I'll respect their decision, but that's not going to change what I do. And I go out there, I do what I'm going to do, and they see that. And after enough times of me walking back into the firehouse, drenched in sweat, hammering a protein shake, talking about how good that just felt, they start coming out.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, man, like, the people inside that firehouse are your family. And, I think if you take the road of shaming them or making them feel less than or whatever, you're breaking trust, and you're driving a wedge into an unnecessary place. You just got to find a way to relate to that individual. Okay, what does get this person fired up? And then just start slow with them.
Yeah.
Because everybody's not going to be able to just jump in and start doing high intensity, freaking Austin Gillespie workouts. I mean, that dude's a maniac. So we just can't expect everybody to do that right off the bat, but you've got to just get started. And
I tell you what, man, the conditioning is really, because when I was younger, my workouts before I joined the fire service was always lifting weights. I was always bench pressing, working on the beach muscles, wanted to have the biggest biceps, wanted to always look real impressive. And then when I joined the fire service, I realized how much my physical fitness was not where it should be. And it took a fire that I was years ago that I realized I needed to get in better shape. Even in the trainings, I realized I was sucking wind, and I thought all I needed was like brute strength, and that was all I needed in the fire service. And then I realized that I need to concentrate on conditioning, endurance, core workouts. And honestly, I feel like I'm in better shape in these recent 10 years than I was in my 20s.
Yeah,
because I catered my workout to not only strength conditioning, but the endurance and core workouts, making sure I can keep going and being on air and working in my gear. So those gear workouts, they do pay off. And working with air or just having a pack on, it helps you prepare for those high stress environments. And like we said, we got to prepare for game day. And I think backup quarterbacks, backup linebackers, wherever you want to be, you gotta physically prepare for when you might have to be the front runner on that, even if you think you're second string.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And, there's no substitute to getting out and working out in your gear, and I know people have different opinions about that, but the way I look at it, man, is like you could be the most in shape marathon runner, yeah, Iron Man, whatever, and you put gear on and that thermal saturation starts happening inside your gear and that hot air starts puffing out of your coat whenever you're trying to take a breath. it, it'll humble you really quick.
Yeah,
And the only way to get better at that is to spend time in your gear. Like you have to just
100%.
get comfortable with it. I mean, there's no substitute to that at all.
I love it, man. So let's see what else we got here. So I love the fact that you wanted to talk about your pride in the fire service. You're putting that patch on. What's your thoughts on that?
Man, so I think a lot of it for me stemmed from some uncles that I had growing up. I think that they're technically my great uncles. I'm not sure how all that works. They're my dad's uncles. But my dad's grandfather drove a tiller for FD&Y.
That's awesome.
Growing up, I would always hear my uncles just brag about their dad and the fire service and the guys at the firehouse. And, I saw the pride that they had in the fact that their dad was a fireman. And I just thought that was so cool. Like you don't see that in a whole lot of professions, just the kids or family members just being ultra proud to tell people like, oh yeah, my dad is a fireman, and when I finally got through fire academy and I got my first job as a full-time firefighter and I got that badge pinned on me, I it kind of hit me like how cool and how just awesome that is that I have the opportunity to be doing this. And when you look at the fire service as a whole and what it's about and the brother and sisterhood and just the worldwide support that this industry has, it's just I don't know how you couldn't be proud of being a firefighter.
Right.
And to me, I mean, I drive my crew crazy sometimes just because I'm always cleaning the firehouse. I'm always wanting to go wash trucks, do all of those little things. But it comes down to just a pride thing to me. Like I am proud to work for Granite Shoals Fire Department, and I want that to show when a council member walks into our house and it's cleaned up, it's tightened up, it's looking good, or we have a walk up and somebody's got a medical emergency and they've got to come in and sit down at our table while we see what's going on, or we're driving down the street and our truck's shining and looking good. It's something to be proud of, and we've all worked really hard to get where we're at, and it's the best job in the world. And I love everything about it. I love everything.
I love
about
the pride, man. That passion's there. You can see it. You can hear it. You've nailed it. Like we wanted this, especially someone like you, man. Like you don't forget how much you wanted this. It shows in what you do, and the message that you bring to everybody. I think sometimes we do take for granted that we have the best job in the world.
Yeah,
and that we need to keep it that way. We show people we have pride in our trucks, in our station, in our uniforms.
Yep.
When you walk around with unzipped boots, and then I know you have a long shift, many calls. You got to throw your boots on again. But we do have to have that sense of pride when we go out those doors and those clients, those customers, people in need see us They want to
They
make
want to
sure
make
not
sure
only
not
are they
only are
getting
they
the
getting the
best
best
care, but
care, but
also the
also
most
the most
professional
professional
people
people
on the
on the
scene
scene
who are
100%.
representing the
representing the
department.
department.
And there's a
And there's a
100%.
tradition, and there's
tradition, and there's
honor, and there's
honor, and there's
pride to
pride
it.
to it.
And
Yeah.
you nailed
You
it,
nailed
dude.
it, dude.
And you know, it can be easy to kind of forget about it, you know, or get caught up in the mundane, you know, especially if you have a couple of shifts back to back where, you know, you don't get anything exciting. You come home, you have a busy or stressful home tour, and you go back to work, and you know, you kind of just feel like it's this grind and nothing exciting's happening. But that's when we need to be able to lean on each other and hold each other accountable as.
And there's other people that don't get to do this job, right? There are people who would give their left nut to be able to do what we do. And for whatever reason, either physically or mentally, or they're just not competent enough to get through the skills, or they can't do it for whatever reason, right? But they want it so bad. And we get to do it. I think we lose that focus where there's other people in this world that would love to be in our shoes. And for some reason they can't. And so when I think guys complain about the job or the calls we have to go on, we forget that we're lucky enough to do this job where there's other people that would gladly step in our shoes and would never complain because they get to do their dream. And like you, man, like you achieved your dream. Like you know what you wanted to do. You felt it deep inside into your core. And whether your body was failing on you, you jumped right back and nailed it and continued on. And I think that for me personally, that near death experience that you happened to you was you're that driving force that I'm lucky to be here and I'm blessed to be doing this job and be with people who care about me in and out of the firehouse. I think we need more of that. It's difficult sometimes. Again, you have a tough tour and you could have been up for 24 or 48 hours. It takes a toll on you mentally. And that's why you do need those breaks. You need to not be completely immersed in the fire service world. You got to get out and spend time with your family, get some naps in, get a good sleep. The gym, even if it's just a light workout, just to clear your mind. I love working out, man. That clears my mind, and I realize how lucky I am to be doing this job. And I come back in with passion and energy and pride to be a firefighter and doing the job that not everyone gets to do. Yeah, man. 100%. So we're kind of getting over an hour. I know there's other topics you want to touch on, but I have a feeling that the talking about search and saving lives, I think that's going to be have to do a topic for another time if you're cool with that, because man, we could talk about that for an hour. That's a totally different topic. So we'll definitely have to save that for another time if you're cool with that. All right, man. This was awesome. I love getting to know you even more, man. There was stuff I didn't know about you, and this is so cool. You got anything else before we start wrapping it up? Yeah, man. I love it. So let me ask you real quick. When you're working out, is there a favorite song or music you like to listen to? Nice. Nice. Classic. I like that very much. Bringing it old school. Black Betty, Rambalam. Well, thank you so much, man. Thank you, everyone else, for tuning in and listening to the C.A.N Report. It was Eric Wuensch of the Granite Shoals Fire Department. He is one solid dude. I hope to have you on again when we could talk about more of the of search and beyond the search and everything else that goes with it, because that is going to be another like hour-long topic, I'm sure. So, man, it was a pleasure talking with you, brother. You stay right there. So we're going to just we'll leave here for now. Y'all have a great day. Thanks for listening.